Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be taking a look at the story of Malala Yousafzai,
Oh, wow.
and we've got some really interesting sources you sent over, like some text excerpts and images that lay out a good timeline.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to sort of try to
Yeah.
piece together this narrative of courage and resilience.
Yeah. That's what really drew me to this story, honestly. It's not just like a typical biography.
Yeah.
It's about this young woman who stood up for education and equality in the face of incredible danger.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is that it all starts in a place that I think most people, at least here, probably haven't even heard of, the Swat Valley in Pakistan.
Right. It's this region that's like known for its incredible natural beauty. People call it the Switzerland of Asia.
Oh, wow.
But then under Taliban rule, it became this battleground for human rights, especially for women and girls.
Oh, right. And that's where that article you shared comes in, the one that talks about the Pakistani Taliban and their opposition to girls' education, right? It's so chilling to realize that they destroyed over 100 schools.
Yeah, over 100. They created this like climate of fear
Yeah.
where anyone who defied them was at risk.
And it was in this context that Malala and her father really stood out as beacons of defiance, huh? It's one thing to be a school principal, but to openly advocate for education when other families were pressured to conform, I mean, that takes serious courage.
Absolutely. Her father was a huge influence on her, always encouraging her to learn and speak her mind. And the blog post she wrote for the BBC,
Yeah. At 11 years old.
under a pseudonym, of course. But still, can you imagine the guts it took to expose those injustices, knowing what the Taliban was capable of?
And she was so young, right? It's almost as if she was already speaking truth to power even before the world even knew her name.
Exactly. And then everything changed in 2012.
Yeah, the attack.
I mean, to be targeted at just 15 years old simply for wanting to learn.
It's almost impossible to comprehend. You shared that account of the attack, and reading it, I felt sick to my stomach. Those masked men boarding her school bus, asking which one is Malala.
It could have silenced her. But instead, it did the opposite.
Yeah.
It amplified her voice in a way that no one could have predicted.
Oh, absolutely. The whole world was captivated by her courage, and it sparked this massive movement for girls' education.
Hmm. Even the Pakistani government was pressured to adopt a new policy for equal education.
Hmm.
It's incredible how one event led to such a global response.
And then, I mean, here she is recovering from being shot in the head, airlifted to Britain. And she could have easily just focused on getting better, right? But she didn't.
No, not at all. She used that moment, that platform, to take her message to the world, and not just about her own experience.
Oh, right. That's where the Malala Fund comes in, right?
Exactly. And it's not just building schools. From what I've seen in these reports you shared,
Right.
they're tackling the systemic barriers that prevent girls from getting an education.
Like child marriage and poverty.
Yes, and working within communities to change cultural norms that say boys' education matters more.
Wow.
It's really about investing in a brighter future for everyone.
I saw that the Malala Fund is working in Brazil, to combat child marriage. They're supporting families and offering scholarships. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really about creating lasting change.
Absolutely. And then there's that quote you highlighted from her UN speech, the one about books and pens being our most powerful weapons.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
It just sums up her message so perfectly, right? It's this idea that anyone can create change, no matter how small they might seem.
And the world listened. At 17, she became the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Incredible,
Right.
right? It's unbelievable. But what strikes me is that through it all, she's never strayed from her core message.
Right. Like she could have easily gotten swept up in all the fame and attention,
For sure.
but she stayed focused on the cause. It's clear she's committed to education because she's seen firsthand how powerful knowledge can be.
Absolutely. It's inspiring, really. But I'm curious, you mentioned some criticism she's faced, even in her own country, like how she dealt with people who just don't agree with her. What does that tell us about her character?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's true. She has had to deal with a lot of pushback, even hostility, especially from those who feel threatened by her message.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's been called a Western puppet, accused of staging the attack for publicity, even of betraying her culture. It's crazy.
It's so disheartening to see how fear and ignorance can warp people's perceptions like that. But how has she handled it?
With a lot of grace, I'd say. She's always emphasized her commitment to her faith, her culture, her people, and she's made it clear that her fight for education is actually rooted in Islamic teachings about justice and equality.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And she's also always stressed that her message is universal. Every child, no matter who they are or what they believe, deserves an education, all right?
It's a powerful message for sure.
Yeah. And it's a testament to her strength that she doesn't let her opponents define her. She stays focused on her mission and on giving a voice to the marginalized.
It's really incredible
It is.
how she just keeps moving forward.
Exactly. Her belief in her cause is unshakable. So welcome back to our deep dive into the life and work of Malala, right?
Picking up right where we left off.
We've covered a lot of ground, from her childhood under the Taliban to her, like, global fight for education.
Yeah. But there's still so much to explore, especially when it comes to the actual impact she's had. We talked a bit about the Malala Fund, but
Oh, yeah. That deserves a deeper look for sure.
you included those reports in the materials you sent. And it's
Okay.
clear they're not just about, like, building schools.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm really struck by their focus on grassroots change.
Hmm.
You know, like that they're empowering local leaders and going after those systemic barriers that keep girls from going to school.
So, like, tackling things like child marriage, poverty, even just cultural norms that say boys are more important.
Exactly. They get that real change starts from within a community. And, that example from your research about their work in Lebanon with the Syrian refugee girls,
Yeah.
it's not just about, like, offering education. It's also about providing emotional support
Yeah.
because these girls have been through so much.
Oh, yeah. Trauma like that. I mean, you can't just ignore that and expect them to just jump right into learning, right? It's about creating a safe space.
Absolutely. A place where they feel empowered.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how they're using tech, too.
Oh, how so?
They've partnered with different organizations to provide digital learning resources to girls in really remote areas,
Oh.
recognizing that, access to technology can completely change the game.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you can't physically get to a school, having those online resources.
Exactly. And you had that case study about their work in India,
Oh, right. They're training female teachers and giving them those digital tools.
reaching girls who would otherwise have zero access to education.
It's such a great example of how, like, innovation can really make a difference.
Right. There's no single answer that works everywhere. They get that each community has its own issues and its own, potential.
It's pretty amazing how Malala's vision has turned into such concrete action, like creating real change across the world.
Yeah, and it's not just the organization, right? Her words, her message, they've become this rallying cry for so many. Do you remember that quote from her Nobel Prize speech? So, one child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world.
Oh, of course. It's so simple, but so powerful.
Right, because it reminds us that we all have a role to play. Even small things can have this huge ripple effect.
And it's a message that resonates with everyone, right? Doesn't matter your
Right.
background, your culture, your language.
Yeah, her story transcends all of that. It just taps into this basic human desire for justice, for equality, this idea that everyone deserves a chance to reach their full potential.
Yeah.
Another one of her quotes that I think is so powerful is, "We can't all succeed when half of us are held back."
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It really highlights how interconnected everything is and how we need to work together.
Right. Because the fight for girls' education is really a fight for all of us. Everyone benefits when girls are empowered.
I mean, it's great that we're talking about all this progress, but it's also kind of sobering to realize how many girls are still being denied an education, right?
Yeah, it's true. Millions. Still. And it's a stark reminder that there's so much work left to do. Those deeply rooted cultural norms, the lack of resources.
You included that report on the barriers girls face in sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh, yeah. It's heartbreaking, honestly. Poverty, conflict, child marriage, just basic things like sanitation. That's a lot.
And these are such complicated problems. Like, where do you even begin to find solutions?
Right. But groups like the Malala Fund and so many others, they're out there working tirelessly. The work they're doing in Nigeria.
Oh, yeah. Pushing for more government funding for girls' education and supporting community initiatives.
Yeah. It's about getting to the root of the problem.
And it's important to remember, this isn't just a problem in developing countries, right?
Oh, absolutely. Even in developed countries, girls and women face these systemic barriers.
Mhm.
Think about the gender pay gap, how few women are in STEM fields, and all the stereotypes that hold girls back.
It's like we've come a long way, but there's still so far to go.
Right. And we have to be constantly pushing for equality because it's so easy to slip backwards.
Yeah. I think it's important to acknowledge all the people who are working with Malala, too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's not just her, right? She's got this amazing support system. Her parents, teachers, activists, all these people who share her vision.
Her story is really about the power of collective effort, like we don't have to fight for change alone.
It's about finding strength in our shared humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And, that brings us back to something we touched on earlier about the criticism she's faced.
Yeah. It's easy to forget that not everyone is on board with her message.
Yeah. Anyone who challenges the status quo is going to face resistance. And for Malala, a lot of that resistance has come from people in her own country who are afraid of what her message of empowerment means.
Like those conspiracy theories about the attack being staged.
Exactly. Or that she's just a puppet for the West. It's messed up how people twist her story to fit their own agenda.
It shows how powerful her message really is. If it wasn't threatening to some people, they wouldn't bother trying to discredit her. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she's never backed down. And that's what's so inspiring. Her resilience, her courage in the face of all that negativity.
She doesn't just ignore it either. She confronts those challenges head on. Like, she actively engages with people who disagree with her.
She uses her platform to create dialogue and understanding. Because real change, it often means having those difficult conversations and being willing to listen to different perspectives.
It's amazing how she keeps so calm and focused when she's dealing with all this scrutiny.
It really shows her character.
Mm-hmm.
She truly believes in what she's fighting for.
And it's not just about girls' education anymore, right?
No, it's evolved into something much bigger. Now she's tackling things like social justice and human rights on a global scale. Climate change, the refugee crisis.
You're right. It's like she's constantly expanding her message to include these huge interconnected issues.
She gets it. She sees how these things are all intertwined. And she's using her platform to connect those dots, to show how the fight for girls' education is also a fight for a more just and sustainable world.
I remember that excerpt from her World Economic Forum speech.
Oh, yeah, where she was talking about the need for climate action.
She was so passionate, arguing that investing in girls' education is vital for building resilience to climate change.
It's brilliant because it shows how empowering girls isn't just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do for everyone.
It's not just about advocating for one cause, it's about offering a vision for a better future. A future where education drives progress and positive change.
And that's what makes her story so compelling. It's not just about her achievements, but what she represents.
Yeah.
Right? Hope, resilience, the belief that a better world is possible. And that hope is contagious.
Oh, yeah. It makes you want to believe that you can make a difference, too, even in small ways.
Exactly. Especially young people.
Yeah. Right.
They see Malala as a role model, a champion for their generation.
Like the Malala Fund's Gulmakai Network.
Yes, a group of young activists from all over the world, taking her message and running with it.
That's really cool.
It is. They're the future. And it's beautiful to see how her legacy is going to live on, inspiring countless others to keep fighting for justice and equality.
And it goes beyond just activism and policy, too. I mean, her story is everywhere.
Oh, for sure. Documentaries, books, songs, even a children's book.
Her image is iconic, right? A symbol of courage and hope.
It's amazing how her story has gone from activism to mainstream culture, reaching people who might never have thought about girls' education otherwise.
And that's huge. It means her message is becoming part of everyday conversation.
It's not some niche issue anymore. It's being discussed in schools, at home, even on the big screen.
It just shows how powerful storytelling can be. Malala's story resonates on such a human level. It connects with everyone.
Yeah, and she really understands that power. Her memoir, I Am Malala.
Yeah.
If you want to really understand her journey, you have to read it.
It's beautifully written.
She's not just sharing her own story, right?
Yeah.
She's using her platform to give others a voice, especially girls and women who are often overlooked.
Like her work with Assembly, the Malala Fund's digital publication.
Yeah, that's a great example. Sharing stories from girls all over the world, their experiences with education, gender equality, social justice, it's all in there.
It gives those girls a chance to tell their own stories in their own words, and that challenges stereotypes and inspires other people.
Exactly. Because everyone has a story to tell, and those stories have the power to change the world.
It's true.
And by creating a platform for those stories, Malala is increasing their reach and impact.
It's another way she's using her influence to make the world more inclusive and equitable, right?
Right. And, we can't talk about her influence without mentioning her father, Seoden. He's been such a crucial part of her journey.
Yeah, they have an amazing bond. He's always been there to support her, encouraging her love of learning and her activism.
He's an educator and activist himself. Remember, he founded a school for girls in the Swat Valley, defied all those societal norms just so his daughter could learn.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It shows you how powerful family can be, how important it is to have parents who believe in their children.
Ziauddin's faith in Malala is what helped her become the extraordinary woman she is today.
It reminds us that we all need people in our lives who champion our dreams, who encourage us to reach for the stars.
But it goes beyond just father and daughter, right? They're partners in this fight.
Working together to advocate for education and social justice.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to fight alone.
We can find strength and support in our families, our communities, and our shared humanity, right?
And that's a powerful message to take with us as we head into the final part of our deep dive.
Absolutely. Malala's story is one of courage, resilience, love, this profound belief in the power of education to change lives and create a more just world.
It's inspiring, but it also challenges us to do more, be more, and work towards a better future for everyone.
Don't miss our final installment, where we'll really get into Malala's evolving message, her impact on the global stage, and the legacy of her work.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the incredible story of Malala Yousafzai.
It's been quite a journey, from those early blog posts she wrote when the Taliban was in control to her being this global advocate.
Yeah. We've seen her go from focusing on girls' education to tackling all these bigger issues, climate change, refugee rights.
It's like she's always pushing us to see the bigger picture.
Right, like how all these seemingly separate problems are actually connected.
And she does it in a way that's so personal. It's not just some academic lecture.
Yeah, she always brings it back to the human experience.
Exactly. Like in that interview you shared where she's talking about meeting with Syrian refugee girls. She doesn't just throw statistics at you. She talks about their stories, their hopes, how resilient they are.
It's that human connection that makes her message so powerful.
For sure. It lets her connect with people on an emotional level, It builds empathy and understanding even across cultures.
And what I find so inspiring is that it's not about her telling people what to do.
Right. It's not like she's saying this is the solution.
It's about starting a conversation, getting people thinking critically.
Empowering people to create change themselves.
You included her book, We Are Displaced, in the materials.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just her story. It's a collection of stories from young women who've been forced to flee their homes.
Powerful story.
And by giving them a platform, she's forcing us to really confront the refugee crisis.
It's about giving a voice to the voiceless.
Exactly. And she really understands that real change comes from listening to those who are most affected.
It's about amplifying those voices, not speaking for them.
And that brings us back to this idea of education as a catalyst for change.
A theme that runs through all her work.
But what does education really mean in the context of her message? Is it just about going to school, reading books?
It's bigger than that, I think. It's about giving people the tools they need to navigate the world, to challenge injustice, to build a better future.
So it's about agency, about giving people the power to shape their own lives.
Exactly. And that's why her work goes beyond just schools and classrooms. It's about tackling all those barriers that keep girls from getting a quality education.
Poverty, child marriage, discrimination.
The whole picture.
And that's where the Malala Fund comes in.
Right. They're not just building schools. They're working with communities, training teachers, providing scholarships.
You shared that report about their work in Pakistan.
Oh, yeah.
And they're really committed to making a lasting impact.
Measuring their success, not just by how many girls are enrolled in school, but by their actual learning outcomes, their well-being.
It's about getting to the root of the problem.
And I think that's Malala's true legacy. It's not just about the schools or the policies. It's about the millions of girls who are inspired by her.
Who believe they can make a difference.
It's about the ripple effect of her courage and her belief in the power of education.
It's a legacy that will live on for generations.
And it reminds us that even when things seem impossible, hope is still there. Courage can win, and one voice can change everything.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life and legacy of Malala Yousafzai.
Her story is a powerful reminder that we can all work together to create a world where every child has the chance to reach their full potential.